Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to today's second live stream. We are on Microsoft Flight Simulator. We are going to be doing the A320 training scenarios. All right, I'm going to try to monitor chat. So if I miss anybody's questions or whatever, I apologize in advance. I'm trying to figure out the best place to put the chat so I can see questions, comments, whatever, and kind of get my screen set up so I can do everything. So I apologize if I miss your comments. Hello, Mick. Yeah, that's not going to work there. All right, there we go. That can go right there. This can come over here just a little bit so that I can see. All right, so basically what we've got here is under the bush trips. I purchased this, excuse me, this jetliner training. This is made by an actual A320 pilot. And if you want to follow along, there's if you go to the fsacademy.co.uk website, I believe it is. I'll put, you know what, if you want to follow along, it'll give you the, fsacademy.co.uk is the place you go. Just, you can type that into your thing real quick, your browser. That'll give you access to the manual, and you can just follow along with us with the manual if you don't want to fly at the same time. You know, you can just kind of read and go along. We're going to start with the overhead panel part if you want to scroll down to that. And because that's where we're going to have to start up the plane once we're the narrator kind of gives us the idea of what we're going to be doing. We're going to get in here and get this going so we can proceed forward. So hopefully everybody's having a good Monday morning still / afternoon. Now, the other thing, too, is they don't want you to... and Joe's going live on Microsoft Flight Sim, too, at the same time. Anyway, that's all right. So, we will...
This is FS Academy Jetliner. We're going to introduce you to airline operations step by step, starting with a complete short-haul flight. We're in the A320neo and have just finished our pushback here at London Gatwick, bound for Barcelona. Make sure that the APU is running, and we'll talk about jet engines.
All right, so we're going to hit this to close that. And then we're going to do this to on.
The A320 thrust levers have a set of detents that you'll need to be familiar with. Move the levers all the way forward to the toga position.
We're going to go full throttle here just so he can talk to us about the throttles.
This is the toga detent, which stands for takeoff go around.
Right there.
This setting will give maximum power when required for takeoff on a short runway or to initiate a go-around. It would be hard on the engines and use a lot of fuel if we used maximum power for every takeoff. So instead we use a reduced thrust setting known as flex. Move the levers back a little into the flex MCT detent.
Right there.
This is the flex MCT detent. Flex is a reduced takeoff thrust setting when maximum power isn't needed, saving fuel and engine wear. MCT stands for maximum continuous thrust. Whilst Toga provides full power, keeping the engines at 100% thrust for longer than about 5 to 10 minutes can cause excessive wear and damage. MCT is a slightly reduced power setting, but it can be set for an unlimited time, without fear of overstressing the engines.
There we go.
Here in the Flex detent is where we'll set the levers for today's takeoff from Gatwick.
Okay.
Move the levers back another notch to the Climb detent.
Right there.
Unlike in a Boeing aircraft, Airbus thrust levers do not move in response to the auto thrust. Instead, the levers are manually placed into the Climb detent shortly after takeoff, where they will remain for the majority of the flight. The auto thrust can control engine power as needed, with the levers remaining in the Climb detent the entire time. Finally, bring the levers all the way back to idle. This is the idle detent, where the engines are at their minimum power. In the final moments before touchdown, you'll move the levers here to reduce thrust for landing, and this will automatically disengage the auto thrust system.
Okay.
This is also the position used for starting the engines. Set the engine mode selector to start.
Okay. Engine mode selector to start. That's this knob right here, engine mode. And we're going to go to
Now
the
set
right.
the engine 1 master switch to on.
Now check this out. So 1 is on the left. I thought I switched it to on. Did I switch it to on? I thought I did. Yeah. Did I miss something? Oh, you know what? I bet you are the AP bleed. Nope. Why is it not starting up? Okay, what's wrong here? Oh, no, it's engine anti-ice. Okay. It's on. Why is it not? Did something not get switched correctly? Close. Should be on. Yeah, it's not engaging the switch. That's interesting. Why is it not engaging? Normally it would have Okay. P master. There we go.
A jet engine typically has two main fans at the front of the engine, one big and one small, known as N1 and N2. Each fan is connected via a shaft to their own set of turbine blades at the back of the engine.
We'll start to
The
see the
N2
exhaust out
fan
of
is
the
the
engine here
smaller
in a
of the
moment.
two and starts turning first. Once it gains speed, the air it moves gets pushed over the turbine blades for the N1 fan, causing it to spin.
Let's move this back to off. Oops. Move this back to normal. Wow, it is not starting up. All right, let's restart this real quick. That's okay. Something may have not gone according to plan. We're all here to learn.
This is FS Academy Jetliner. We're going to introduce you to airline operations step by step, starting with a complete short-haul flight. We're in the A320neo and have just finished our pushback here at London Gatwick, bound for Barcelona. Make sure that the APU is running and we'll talk about jet engines.
So APU master to start. There we go.
The A320 thrust levers have a set of detents that you'll need to be familiar with. Move the levers all the way forward to the toga position. This is the toga detent, which stands for takeoff
No,
go-around.
it doesn't, Mick.
This setting will
that's
give
why you have the
maximum
manual.
power
You have
when
to kind
required
of
for
follow
takeoff
along
on a
with
short
the manual,
runway or to initiate
and
a
it shows
go-around.
where all the switches are.
It would be
for
hard on the
everything.
engines and use a lot of fuel if we used maximum power for every takeoff. So instead we use a reduced thrust setting known as flex. Move the levers back a little into the flex MCT detent. This is the flex MCT detent. Flex is a reduced takeoff thrust setting when maximum power isn't needed, saving fuel and engine wear. MCT stands for maximum continuous thrust. Whilst toga provides full power, keeping the engines at 100% thrust for longer than about 5 to 10 minutes can cause excessive wear and damage. MCT is a slightly reduced power setting, but it can be set for an unlimited time, without fear of overstressing the engines. Here in the flex detent is where we'll set the levers for today's takeoff from Gatwick. Move the levers back another notch to the climb detent. Unlike in a Boeing aircraft, Airbus thrust levers do not move in response to the auto thrust. Instead, the levers are manually placed into the climb detent shortly after takeoff, where they will remain for the majority of the flight. The auto thrust can control engine power as needed, with the levers remaining in the climb detent the entire time. Finally, bring the levers all the way back to idle. This is the idle detent, where the engines are at their minimum power. In the final moments before touchdown, you'll move the levers here to reduce thrust for landing, and this will automatically disengage the auto-thrust system. This is also the position used for starting the engines. Set the engine mode selector to start. Now set the engine 1 master switch to on.
See, it doesn't. Okay,
A jet engine typically has 2 main fans at the front of the engine, one big and one small, known as N1
Okay, so now we
and
know
N2.
it started because it's starting to spin, and you can
Each
see the
fan
one
is
that's spinning
connected
and
via a
one's not.
shaft to their
So
own
we should
set
be
of
getting
turbine
it's
blades at the back of the engine.
Number
The
1
N2
is started
fan
up
is the
now. You
smaller
see
of
the
the
exhaust
two
there.
and starts
That's how you
turning
know we've got a
first.
good.
Once it gains speed, the
Things
air
are
it
starting
moves
up.
gets
You can
pushed
also
over
look
the
at your
turbine
gauges.
blades for the N1 fan, causing it to spin.
As the pressure starts to build up. So there's number 1 there. 1 is on the left and 2 will be on the right. So 1 is spinning up.
Good. Now
So it
start
doesn't need
engine
a-
2.
It doesn't need a power unit to start it. You know, you start it on your own. All right, there goes 1
N2
or
is
2
rotating.
now.
Fuel starts being supplied at around 20% N2, at which point the exhaust gas temperature, EGT, starts to rise and N1 starts to spin.
All right, there we go. So both engines are started up. We got exhaust coming out of engine number 2. That's a good sign. Got that, you know, kind of the fumes or whatever, the hot air coming off the back of the engine there. All right. Now this next part, when we start to taxi, this is the part that kind of threw me for a loop, because as soon as you release the parking brake, it's like you're going fast right away. That was the crazy part. But we got it under control now, or we will. I kind
Both
of know
engines
what
are now
to
running,
expect
so
here.
we'll perform the after start flow.
Okay. Engine mode to normal. So we go to this switch back here, go back to normal. The bleed, which is number 3 here. That's the APU bleed right there. We set that to off. The APU master to off. The spoilers arm. So basically all we have to do is interact, and we push forward to armed. And then the flaps, we want to go to just 1.
Good. Now that we've completed the
Spoiler-
flow actions, we
spoilers
complete the
armed,
after
and
start
then-
checklist. Anti-ice off.
So
Ecam
now
status
the
checked.
narrator basically goes through a checklist
trim
and
set.
does all that stuff.
Rudder trim 0. After start checklist complete.
There we go.
Just like on a small aircraft, we check the flight controls for full and
Now
free
check
movement
this out. We'll
before
go to the back
departure,
here.
starting with the
We'll,
ailerons.
we'll be outside the plane. We're going to check.
Full left. Full right. Neutral.
Neutral. So left stick, right stick, neutral. Elevator up, oop, up.
Full up. Full down. Neutral.
There we go.
Rudder full left. Full right. Neutral.
There we go.
Great.
So we
The flight
checked all over our
controls
flight.
look good.
Yep.
Jetliner 488 clearance available.
Ready to copy, Jetliner 488.
Jetliner 488 cleared to Barcelona via Novma 1 X-ray, runway 26 left, altitude 5,000 feet, squawk 7402.
Jetliner 488 cleared to Barcelona, Novma 1 X-ray, 26 left, altitude 5,000, squawking 7402.
Jetliner 488, read back correct, report ready for taxi.
We've just received our ATC route clearance. We're departing via the Novma 1 X-ray departure from runway 26 left, climbing to an initial stop altitude of 5,000 feet, which is set. We're ready to go. Let's request taxi clearance. Jetliner 488 request taxi.
Jetliner 488, taxi to hold short runway 26 left via Papa Alpha Sierra, holding point Alpha 2.
Alright, there we go.
Alpha Sierra, holding short 26 left at Alpha 2, Jetliner 488. ATC have given us a taxi clearance to holding point Alpha 2. That's pretty much the full length for runway 26 left. Clear left side, clear right side, turn on the taxi light, release the parking brake, and we'll get going.
Okay, so the taxi light. Taxi lights, hold on. Scroll down here so we make sure we hit the right 6. Taxi. Alright, so it's this one. Here we go. And then the parking brake right there.
Taxi ahead,
Off.
turn right at the end onto taxiway Papa, then follow Papa around to the left onto Alpha Sierra to hold short at Alpha 2. Use only the minimum power you need to taxi at about 10 to 15 knots, as we're making some sharp turns.
Alright. See, it was weird because last time it seemed like it just took off on its own. Maybe I still had a piece of it was in like the...
Now we're moving, give the brakes a squeeze to check that they're working. Brakes checked. Keep on taxiing and take the next right onto Papa.
Meep, meep. I wish they had a horn, you know, like you could tell everybody, hey, we're moving. Alright, we are on our way. So I kind of know where to go this time already. I replayed this a bunch of times because it just wasn't making much sense on how to get to where we were going. Since we don't have the guide lights on the ground, you know, or the little blue arrows to show us which way to go to get there. So we are going to turn here.
Turn right here and follow Papa to the end, where we'll turn left to Alpha Sierra. Whilst taxiing, we run through the PEDS check, which is a brief recap of our departure. Performance, departing from Alpha Sierra for 26 left, as expected. Engine out. If we have an engine failure, at 1,700 feet we would turn left to Willow. Departure, Novma 1 X-ray, runway 26 left, is on our clearance and in the FMGC. Stop altitude, 5,000 feet from ATC.
Alright, so this part is the somewhat easy part, but it's easy to get lost. Now he should kind of tell us when to turn. Nice to go to the end, so we're going to turn here to the left. But I know where AS is, so we're just going to make our way over there. So essentially we are going to hold, there's a parking, kind of a parking spot over here that we're going to hold in. And that's going to conclude this part of the tutorial. And then we're going to taxi out and take off. So we're going to hold in this right up here.
This is Alpha 2, come to a stop here. Great,
so we're
now
stop
set
right
the
here.
parking brake.
Turn the parking brake back on. Yep.
Now we're at the halting point, we'll complete the before takeoff checklist. Flight controls checked. Briefing confirmed. Flap setting config 1. FMA and takeoff data V1 blue, V2 magenta, climb nav 5000 blue, 1 FT2 flex. Transponder set. ECAM memo, takeoff no blue. EFB stowed and disconnected. Down to the line. Okay, we've completed our checks down to the line on the checklist. We continue below the line once we're cleared for lineup. We'll return once the cabin crew reports that the cabin is secured for takeoff.
Okay. We're going to go to the bush trip menu. We're just going to go right there, and then we're going to go right into our takeoff. Now this is when things get really fun. Now, I didn't know this, that they keep a little bit of nose pressure down when you take off in the A320, but he'll tell us all that when we go through here. Alright, we're facing the direction where we parked, so we parked the right way.
We're at holding point Alpha 2 for runway 26 left at Gatwick, just waiting for the cabin to call ready. Whilst we wait, let's review the takeoff profile. When we're cleared to line up, we'll perform the below-the-line actions and taxi onto the runway before coming to a stop. Once cleared for takeoff, push the stick forward slightly and set 50% N1 on the engines. This gives us an opportunity to check that both engines spool up evenly. Once the engines are both stable at 50%, set the levers into the flex detent, keeping your hand on the levers in case we have to stop quickly. Keep the nose down pressure on the stick until 80 knots, then smoothly set the stick to neutral. When I call V1, take your hand off the thrust levers, we can't stop anymore. Next I'll call rotate. You need to smoothly raise the nose to 15 degrees. Once we're off the ground, we'll raise the gear and we're on our way. I'll talk you through each step as we go. That's it. The cabin crew are happy that everyone's sat down and we're ready for takeoff. Let's call ATC.
Yeah, let's call the tower.
Jetliner 488 ready for departure.
Jetliner 488, line up and wait, runway 26 left.
Line up and wait 26 left, Jetliner 488. Runway looks clear, approach looks clear. Line up on the runway centre line and come to a stop.
Alright, let's get the parking brake off. Give it a little gas. Get moving. He makes it sound, yeah, doesn't he?
As we enter the runway, turn on the landing lights and we'll finish the before takeoff checklist below the line. Below the line. Cabin secured for takeoff. Engine mode selector normal. TCAS TARA. Packs on. Anti-ice off. Below the line complete, line up only, runway 26 left from Alpha 2. Come to a stop here.
Jetliner 488, cleared for takeoff, runway 26 left, wind 270 at 8.
Hold on, Mick, it's going to get bumpy.
Clear for takeoff, runway 26 left, Jetliner 488. Great, we're cleared for takeoff. Apply some nose down pressure on the stick and set 50% N1. Engines look good. Move the thrust levers forwards to the flex detent. Thrust is set. Now release the nose down pressure on the stick. 100 knots. V1. Rotate. Smoothly raise the nose to 15 degrees. Pitch up to 15 degrees. Good, now hold the nose there. Positive climb, gear up. Engage autopilot 1.
Autopilot 1. It's right there.
Now reduce thrust to the climb detent.
There we go.
Now that we're above S speed, retract the flaps. Disarm spoilers and taxi light off. In Alt Star mode, the autopilot will capture our selected altitude of 5,000 feet. The landing lights add a small amount of drag and vibration, so let's turn them off now that we're in the air and it's daytime. Release the crew by turning the seatbelt sign off and then back on again.
So that is the prompt light. We go off, on, oops.
Great, we're on our way now and the crew are starting their routine.
So if you notice, and here, let me zoom in here.
Next,
it's
we'll
going
look
to follow
at using
this
the
pattern right
automation
here.
systems and cover the techniques used during the climb.
That's the takeoff. That was it. That was it. Isn't it amazing? We get off the ground, we hand it over to the autopilot, and now we can just chill. Kinda. Nice, Patrick. Okay, so let's go back to the bush trip. Now we're going to do the climb phase. So we've done takeoff, climb. It seems so much easier. Like, you set everything up, it's already programmed in, you take off, you just... So now we're going to get into the more interesting aspect of the flying. We're going to climb, and then we're going to cruise, descend, land, taxi.
Welcome back. We're back where we left off at 5,000 feet and 250 knots selected. We'll go through some basic automation handling, utilising the autopilot and the flight control unit, FCU. Keep the autopilot and auto thrust engaged for this session, with the thrust levers in the climb detent. As we saw just after takeoff, the speed selector on the FCU is used to set a speed target. With the speed knob pushed in, we're in managed mode, where the Flight Management Guidance Computer, FMGC, sets an appropriate speed, considering any constraints contained within the flight plan. Pulling the speed knob sets selected speed mode, where we set our own speed target. To demonstrate selected speed mode, set a speed of 220 in the FCU. Good, now a speed target of 220 knots is set, the auto thrust reduces power to allow us to slow down towards it. The auto thrust is used throughout the flight, from liftoff to just before touchdown. On the primary flight display, PFD, there is a green dot on the speed tape. This represents our minimum drag speed and is known as green dot. Green dot speed increases with both weight and altitude and is the speed at which we have minimum fuel burn, which we'd select if we have to fly a holding pattern. Now select speed 250 to bring us back up to 250 knots. The auto thrust now adds power up to a maximum of climb thrust. Great, keep us at 250 knots. Below 10,000 feet in most airspace types, 250 knots is the speed limit. We're currently following the flight plan in nav mode, where the autopilot flies us along our route. See how the autopilot takes us around the turn at Novma.
There it is, right there. So we are turning left. So we're heading 160, looks like. So we'll look outside. Yep. So almost a southerly direction.
Next we can look at headings. The heading knob has the same pulled or pushed, selected or managed logic.
There.
When pushed, the autopilot is commanded to follow the flight plan route as programmed in the FMGC. Turning and pulling the heading knob allows us to select a heading, usually at the request of ATC or for weather avoidance.
Jetliner 488, turn right, heading 190 degrees.
Right heading 190 degrees, Jetliner 488. Turn the heading knob to preset heading 190, then pull the knob to select it. Now we enter heading mode, and the autopilot will turn us to our selected heading.
Wee, look at that turn. Oh, the G-forces, it's incredible.
Now the autopilot rolls us to wings level on our selected heading.
There's the English countryside.
Next
there,
we'll look
like.
at altitude control. We're currently at an altitude of 5,000 feet using the QNH 1010 altimeter setting reported by Gatwick.
Right there.
An indicated altitude is based on the pressure setting we're using, which changes throughout the day and between locations. One aeroplane may be flying towards another, each using different altimeter settings, making vertical separation unreliable. To fix this problem, when commencing a climb above what's known as the transition level, all aircraft use the same altimeter setting, known as standard. Standard is QNH 1013 or altimeter 29.92.
Or
Jetliner 488 on this heading, climb flight level 120.
Climbing flight level 120, Jetliner 488. Again, to set a selected altitude, turn the alt knob to set the target altitude in the FCU and pull to select. Give it a try, turn the alt knob to set 12,000 in the FCU and pull the knob. We now see thrust climb and open climb at the top of the PFD, showing us that climb thrust is being set and we're in open climb mode. Notice how we leave the thrust levers in the climb detent throughout and the levers don't move in response to the auto thrust. Open climb mode uses pitch to achieve our target speed, which is still set to 250 knots. As 12,000 feet is above the transition level for this airspace, we now set the altimeter to standard by pulling the barrow knob to the left of the FCU.
Is our standard.
We're now using the standard pressure setting, so rather than climbing to altitude 12,000 feet, we say we're climbing to flight level 120.
So it says standard right there. Now this
Above
next part coming up, I
feet,
believe, is the
flight
plug-in.
level 100. The 250 knot speed restriction no longer applies. Select a speed of 290 knots. As open climb uses pitch to control speed, the nose is being lowered to allow us to accelerate. Above flight level 100, we could turn off the seatbelt sign, but we can get turbulence as we pass through cloud layers, so leave the signs on for now. As we reach the altitude set in the FCU, Alt Star engages, showing us the autopilot will capture our selected altitude or flight level.
Now we're just waiting for the next prompts.
We're now established at flight level 120, and Alt mode on the PFD shows that the autopilot will keep us here.
There.
Jetliner 488, climb flight level 210.
Climbing flight level 210, Jetliner 488. OK, set 21,000 with the Alt knob into the FCU and pull for open climb. Great, we're now climbing up to flight level 210.
Now we're going to start passing through the clouds. This is the interesting part. Now, this part coming up, I think, is
Icing
the
can
one
be a
that
real
kind of threw me for a
problem when
loop.
flying airliners in cloud, and so we have anti-ice systems fitted to the wings and engine intakes. We're climbing through the cloud layer above, so let's use the engine anti-ice. Turn on the anti-ice for both engines located on the overhead panel.
Right here, 1 and 2. 1, 2.
Good, this diverts hot air around the inside of the intakes, keeping them warm and free of ice.
Never do that.
To get through the clouds more quickly for a comfortable ride and to reduce our icing exposure, select a speed of 270 and see what happens. Remember how open climb uses pitch to control speed? Now we've selected a lower speed target, the autopilot pulls the nose up in order to trade airspeed for altitude, giving us a boost in climb performance known as a zoom climb. We're using 270 knots as that is roughly the airspeed which gives the best rate of climb in the A320, getting us through the cloud layer in the minimum time.
Flying through the clouds now. Can't see nothing above us, nothing really below us. But watch this, coming up any moment now.
Now we can see blue sky above us. We must be getting close to leaving the cloud layer.
Isn't that amazing? Ta-da! So we're still climbing up to 21,000 feet. But isn't that crazy though? Like, I never knew about the whole icing thing.
We're just getting out of the cloud now, so we can turn off the engine anti-ice. Great, Great, it's all blue skies now. Turn off the seatbelt sign and select 290 knots again.
Now this is where we speed up and throw everybody back in their seats as we start to just...
The thrust is still at its climb setting, so the autopilot lowers the nose to accelerate. Great, now the passengers are free to move about the cabin and we're speeding back up.
Again, he makes it sound so easy.
Good job. We'll come back once we're in the cruise.
All right. That concludes that part. Seems very simple, doesn't it? All right, so now we're going to go to cruise. We did our climb. Now we're going to cruise along. This part shouldn't take very long to do. But we're going to climb up even higher this time. All right, moving right along here. So now,
like before, keep the autopilot and auto thrust engaged
34,000.
with the levers in the climb detent.
Look at that jet trim. That's pretty cool. Oh, there's another one behind us there. Look at that. Got the puffy clouds below us there. That's pretty cool.
Welcome to the stratosphere. In the 1950s, airlines used propeller aeroplanes, which had a maximum
You're welcome,
altitude
Patrick. I'm
of
glad you
rarely
find
more
it
than
so.
30,000 feet. Weather systems and cloud buildups can easily outclimb these now vintage aircraft, putting your cruising altitude in amongst the turbulence, icing and clouds.
Didn't know that
The
either.
jet engine changed all of this. With a great leap forwards in power, greater speeds and altitudes were now within reach. Our A320 can go up to 39,000 feet, whilst other types can climb as high as 45,000 feet. Flying higher has some distinct advantages. It puts us above all but the very tallest thunderstorms, giving a smoother ride. The thinner air also means we have less aerodynamic drag, so we cover ground much more quickly than at lower levels. We can see evidence of this rarefied atmosphere by comparing our indicated airspeed with our true airspeed. Looking at the speed tape on the PFD, it's reading about 270 knots. Now look at the top left corner of the navigation display, ND, and see a true airspeed of 440. The difference between these two speeds is all to do with the drop in air density with altitude. To understand this, we need to touch upon how an airspeed indicator works.
Alright, so
The airspeed indicator is essentially a pressure gauge, detecting the force of the air hitting the nose of the aeroplane. The higher the pressure reading, the higher the airspeed indication. This works fine at low levels, But up here in the higher atmosphere, the air is so much thinner that it causes the airspeed indicator to underread. True airspeed is corrected for altitude, so shows a much more accurate indication of our speed through the air. The skies are busier than ever, so ATC often give us heading changes to maintain our separation from other airliners.
Now, right now
Jetliner
you'll hear in the
488,
background
turn
it's saying,
left 20 degrees for spacing and report the heading.
Left 20 degrees onto heading 150, Jetliner 488. Turn the heading knob and select a heading of 150, pulling to select heading mode.
Overspeed, 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 overspeed.
now, he'll explain the speed thing here in just a moment.
Overspeed, 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 overspeed.
Another method of keeping aeroplanes apart is by allocating a speed to maintain.
Overspeed.
Because of the airspeed altitude complications we touched on earlier, indicated airspeed isn't a consistent method for en route speed control.
Now listen
Instead,
to this
we use
part.
another measurement of speed called our Mach number. Mach number is our speed in relation to our local speed of sound. Whilst the speed of sound varies with altitude, it remains useful for keeping traffic separation. Mach 1 is equal to the speed of sound at our current altitude. Mach 0.7 is 70% of the speed of sound, and so on. Now the speed target is in Mach mode.
Jetliner 488, Mach 0.74 or less due traffic.
Mach 0.74 or less, Jetliner 488. Turn the speed knob and select Mach 0.74. Now you'll see the thrust reduce and the Mach number reduce, shown at the bottom left of the PFD.
That's kind of interesting that we're talking now about Mach numbers in a jetliner. You know, a modern jetliner flying at 70% of the speed of sound.
Jetliner 488, own navigation direct to Gaiac.
Direct Gaiac, Jetliner 488. Alright, let's get back onto our flight plan route. We've been cleared to Gaiac. Press the direct button on the FMGC and enter Golf
DIR.
Alpha India using the FMGC's keyboard.
So we're going to go here and then type
Once
in
GAI is in your scratch pad at the bottom of the screen, click the very
A
top left button to enter Gaiac
I
as a temporary waypoint.
top left waypoint.
This will make a yellow line on the ND appear pointing to Gaiac. Press the bottom right line key where it says direct.
Bam.
That's it. Now push the heading knob on the FCU to engage nav mode.
We should be following that flight plan now to Gaiac. It's not off to this way. We should be heading towards it right there. Now we're just cruising. Isn't that crazy? Now that panel that we just used will come up again. We're just going to fly along here for a little while. Just cruising along at 34,000 feet in the stratosphere. So one of the things I notice is what this aircraft can be very daunting, right? It's a lot of information to kind of sort through and all that. But once you get going, it's not so bad. You know, it's really not. So we're just going to kind of fly along here for a little bit, if I remember correctly. I believe I hit the buttons correctly. Yeah, Gatwick is coming up there. So I think we fly towards Gatwick. Oh, maybe that's what I should have done. Okay, that's what I should have done.
Now we're turning towards Gaiac and returning to our flight plan route.
Okay. That's why I didn't do that correctly. I had to clear out the 150. That's okay. That was my mistake. So now we know. Because I was like, wait a minute, we're still flying and nothing's happening. Okay, now we're back on track.
Jetliner 488, clear of traffic, free speed.
Free speed,
Ooh.
Jetliner 488. Our Mach number speed limit has been cancelled. Select Mach .78. Now watch how long it takes us to accelerate at this altitude.
This is the
With
interesting
these
part
high
here.
altitudes, slowing
All right,
down is no
Patrick.
trouble. Speeding up, however,
Thanks for
can
coming
take a
by.
while.
Appreciate it. So that's the interesting part, that it always felt like, you know, we would increase speed, you know, when you're flying as a passenger, obviously, you increase speed, but you don't really, like, look, we're on the bottom corner there, it says the M number, and it's 0.77 right now, but look, it doesn't seem like we're going any faster, does it? That's the crazy part. But we're going almost 450 knots.
Good job. Let's pick this up once we're getting nearer to our top of descent.
All right, now we're going into the next phase. This is the part that gets a little tricky. The descent. Or maybe it's the approach that got tricky for me. I think that's what it was. The descent part is okay because it's managed by computers in the autopilot.
We're just levelling off at flight level 350 as we await further descent clearance. Let's look at how we manage descending from high altitudes. Descending an airliner from the cruise is an exercise in energy management. To descend most efficiently, we use a couple of rules of thumb that first calculate at what mileage to start our descent,
You got it,
and then
Nick.
another to monitor our progress on the way down. We're looking to start the descent at the right moment and then get us to lower altitudes as seamlessly as possible, with minimum levelling off in between. Choosing the right moment to start going down allows us to stay in the cruise for as long as possible, where we're flying most efficiently. Our first rule of thumb is to divide our flight level by 3 to get the distance at which we should start descending.
Listen to this.
If we're roughly at flight level 360, dividing by 3 gives 120. This means we'd want to start our descent when 120 miles from our destination. If we were cruising at flight level 300, dividing by 3 gives 100, meaning 100 nautical miles would be our descent point. You can quickly estimate our miles to go by looking at the range arcs on the navigation display. At the moment, we have about 130 nautical miles to go, so we know we'll need to start descending in roughly 10 miles. Of course, this calculates only when we would ideally begin descending, but ATC requirements and other traffic will complicate matters. Jetliner 488 requests further descent.
Jetliner 488, roger, call you back, traffic below.
It's very common to have to delay descent if there is another aircraft passing underneath us, or to keep us within controlled airspace. In this case, we turn our attention to energy management, which is the control of the aeroplane's inertia. Reducing our airspeed in anticipation of a descent reduces our energy and allows us to trade altitude for speed once we do start descending. Use the Speed Mac button to switch back to speed mode and select 230 knots.
Speed Mach button right there. 230.
The thrust now comes back and we decelerate, losing energy.
But notice how we're kind of pitched up at the same time to maintain our altitude, it looks like. while we
Now that we're
drain
travelling
off the
less
speed.
quickly, we're covering fewer miles whilst we wait for further descent clearance and can wind the speed back up again once we start going down. Just like open climb, open descent sets idle thrust and uses pitch to achieve our target speed. Starting slow and then setting a higher speed target once we start descending will make the nose drop and give us a steeper descent angle, regaining our desired profile.
Jetliner 488, descend flight level 200.
Descending flight level 200, Jetliner 488. Okay, set 20,000 in the FCU altitude window and pull the Alt knob. Now see how the auto thrust sets idle power and the nose is lowered in open descent mode. With a low airspeed, our drag is also relatively low, giving only a moderate descent rate.
This part is the absolute most fascinating thing. But look how quickly we're losing altitude also. But it's like
Now
controlled.
increase
It's
the
not like it
selected
just...
speed to 290 knots and see what happens. With idle power, the nose is lowered further to achieve our target speed, increasing our descent rate. Rather than using the speed brakes, this is the more efficient way of descending more quickly, saving fuel and reducing both vibration and noise.
Look at that, the vertical speed. We're in the negative. Look how quickly now we're losing airspeed, or altitude. Hello, Daniel. And we'll start to kind of look at, see, look at that. We'll start to, the vertical speed start to come back up.
Conversely, if you want to shallow off the descent, reduce the speed target and the nose will be raised. Let's try this. Select a speed of 270 knots. The nose is raised to slow us to our lower speed target, and our vertical speed reduces a lot at first. Now that our target speed is reached, the nose will lower slightly to maintain this new speed, but our vertical speed will be a little less than before. If you want to reduce your descent rate but don't wish to decelerate, you can also consider using vertical speed mode.
That's a control over there. Alright, so we're lined up on our, there's our waypoints there. There's Gatwick, or not Gatwick, Gaiac. So pretty soon we're going to go into the approach phase. So I think we're going to bleed off to about 20,000 feet. Hey, Pithers. So, in the once we get to 20,000, we should go to the next scenario here. The approach part is the one that threw me for a loop. I had to go through it several times to figure out what to do. But we're going to go through it step by step.
We're going to be entering the cloud, so let's turn on the engine anti-ice.
Engine anti-ice, there's one, and there's two. Now, I know, Mick, I'm going to try to zoom in on all those buttons so that it's easier for you to find them when you go back through and you want to look at what we're doing, you know, and kind of validate it with the...
Modern airliners have some advanced flight management systems on board, which help to maximize the efficiency of the descent planning. The Managed Descent Profile, or VNAV, on Boeing aircraft calculates the descent path appropriate to the current flight plan routing. It considers many factors such as wind conditions, speed limits, and altitude requirements. The aim is to keep us as high as possible for as long as possible, to keep us in the thinner air for longer, improving efficiency. The predictions can be very accurate, however one aspect it can't predict is when ATC gives us shortcuts. It is quite rare at most airports that an entire arrival routing will be flown, as it's usually more efficient and time-saving to provide a shorter route to landing. This can leave you vulnerable to having to struggle with high speeds and using the speed brake to lose altitude quickly enough after having your expected routing shortened considerably. This means it's best to use the flight computers as just another tool to help you, along with your rules of thumb, rather than trusting them completely. Now that we've calculated when to commence our descent, we use another rule of thumb to monitor our progress. It's very similar to our first rule of thumb, but starting with the distance instead. This time, we'll multiply our estimated distance to go by 3, giving us our target flight level. If we expect 80 miles to go, 80 times 3 equals 240. We would want to be at flight level 240. Let's say we get a shortcut and now only have 70 miles to go. We can quickly work out that we should be at about flight level 210. This method works well, but it's up to you to use what you're most comfortable with. Continue flying us towards Barcelona and use the rules of thumb to control our descent on your own without any ATC. Manage your own descent, going down as and when you feel it is right to. I'll update you as we go with the mileage remaining and the altitude you should be at, so you can compare your descent planning with the ideal.
So it's going to give us, we're going to go to flight level 18,000 feet. We're going to go ahead, oops. So as soon as that popped up, I went ahead and dialed that 18,000 feet in, so we start losing it, and then eventually we'll hit that target point. So if we look, Pumal's first up right there. So I just figured by the time we get there, if we're close to 18,000 feet, we'll be spot on. And then the next one, Berga, we see it right there, Berga. I think it goes down to like 16,000 or something like that. So we're going to be good when we hit Pumal. Coming through the clouds
As
again.
we pass Pumal, we have 60 miles to go. 60 times 3 is 180. That means you should be at roughly flight level 180.
Go. 15,000 feet. We're going to go right next to that. For Berga. So Berga is the very next. You can barely make it out there on the monitor. I can't zoom in any further than I am already. But right across there, just above that orange line in green, it'll say Berga. Coming through the clouds. Oh, hey, Bex, how are you? Hello, Amela. Welcome to the stream, Bex. Everybody say hello to 32 Bex. That's Nick's sister. Nice to see you here. So we are doing a training in this beautiful Airbus A320. We are on our way to Barcelona. We are managing our descent right now. And then Gaiac is our next, so we're just at Berga now for our waypoint right there. And we are at the target altitude, roughly.
At Berga, we have 50 miles to run. 50 times 3, 150. So that's flight level 150.
Memuc is 9,000 feet, so we are going to go ahead and dial that in. But that's not Gaiac, that's Memuc there. The next. So we're going to get even lower below the clouds. All right. So now that we're coming under 2,000 or 10,000 feet, he's going to say we need to reduce our speed to 250. Watch any moment now. Once we get close to Memuc. Where's 13,000? So remember that rule of thumb. Anything 10,000 or below, we have to be at 250 knots speed. So, but as we get to Memuc, he'll remind us about that. We'll set our speed up for 250. We do have to follow that rule as well. And then we're going to go back to, we're going to change it to the as we go into approach, it'll have us change the baro readings. Cloudy day over Spain. We come into Barcelona. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead. We'll wait for the prompt. But we should be passing Mammoth right now. We're almost there. That should give us our... We're at the right altitude.
We're arriving at waypoint Mammoth, giving us 30 miles to go. That's a target of flight level 90. Descent management comes with experience and practice. It works with any aircraft type, so once you get the hang of it, you can use this skill in all sorts of scenarios. We'll leave it there for now and return once we're starting to configure for the approach into Barcelona.
And wrap this up and land. All right. Bush trip approach. Now this is the one that threw me for a loop a bunch of times. So we're gonna get an I'd have crashed by now. Well, this one, it's all managed. It's just all training. All you're doing is just turning knobs and pushing buttons, and that's it. The aircraft takes care of everything else on its own. We're coming out of the clouds again.
Welcome back. We're in the descent into Barcelona, on our way down to flight level 90. At around this point of the flight, 10,000 feet, we turn on the seatbelt signs and instruct the cabin crew to secure the cabin for landing. Cabin crew, prepare the cabin for landing.
Jetliner 488, expect ILS Zulu, runway 25
okay, now
right.
this is the part.
ILS Zulu, runway 25 right, Jetliner 488. ATC have told us that we're going to land on runway 25 right by performing the ILS Zulu approach. Enter this into the FMGC by clicking Flight Plan to display our current routing.
This one right here.
Next, click on the button next to LEBL, the ICAO code for Barcelona, written in white.
That one right
Next, click the
there.
top left button where it says Arrival. This brings up a list of all the available arrivals in the navigation database.
Arrival?
Now, use the up arrow to scroll through the list of approaches until you find ILS 25 right Zulu. Click on it once you find it. Being careful to select the correct approach. After selecting the approach, you see it displayed in yellow on the ND. Press Insert to activate this approach.
It takes a moment for it to pop up, but now we're going to insert it into the computer. There we go. Now we have our approach. Looks like we have.
Once below 10,000 feet, our 250 knots speed restriction applies. Select a speed of 250 knots.
See, remember I said we were eventually going to have that brought up again? There it is.
Jetliner 488, descend altitude 4,000 feet, QNH 1010.
Descending to altitude 4,000 feet, QNH 1010, Jetliner 488. Set 4,000 in the alt window on the FCU and pull for open descent.
So 4,000.
Just like switching the altimeters to standard during the climb into the flight levels, we're now switching back to altitudes. Push the baro knob and set a QNH of 1010. Great, now we're back to using altitudes for our height reference.
There we go.
Jetliner 488, direct to Tebler.
Direct Tebler,
Now this is the next
Jetliner
part that kind of
488.
threw me for a loop.
Press direct on the FMGC and enter Tebler as our direct to waypoint.
Now
You
I'm
can
going to
type
cycle
Tebler
through.
in directly or scroll through the list to find it, pressing insert.
There it is, Tebla. Second one. Bang. And then hit direct.
Good, this cuts out most of the arrival and gives us a better idea of our distance remaining. It's pretty grey outside. Turn on the landing lights to make us easier to see.
Jetliner
Now, I don't know-
488, speed 210.
Oh,
Speed
right there.
210,
Okay.
Jetliner 488.
Reduce the speed. So look, now we have a different waypoint to Tebla into
Before
Barcelona.
landing, we use the FMGC to activate the approach phase, which allows the FMGC to control our speed on
Okay, now
final
this
approach.
is what threw me for a loop last time.
The approach phase will
Approach mode.
activate automatically when we reach the decel point on the ND, or you can activate it manually.
Activate
Let's
it
talk
manually.
about how we decelerate and configure the aircraft for landing. On the PFD
don't
speed
activate
tape,
that right
notice
now-
the amber-coloured equals sign. This represents the maximum speed for the next stage of flaps, called VFE Next. Before extending flaps, we make sure that our speed is below VFE Next, otherwise we'll overspeed the flaps. A typical deceleration profile for the A320 begins with extending flaps 1 and setting a speed of 180 knots. Once we're on the approach, we'll extend flaps 2 and take 160 knots. Let's start configuring. Check your speed is below VFE Next on the PFD and select flaps 1.
We're below
We
that,
can
so
get a
we'll
big
flap
boost
one.
in lift from the flaps, known as ballooning, but allow the autopilot to take care of this. Now select 180 knots.
There we go. So hit that approach button manually. That was the key, because I kept waiting for it to take over, thinking that it would tell me, prompt me when to do it. If you don't, you're going to keep flying off the coast of Spain.
Jetliner 488, descend altitude 3,000 feet.
Descending 3,000 feet, Jetliner 488.
Now he'll prompt us when to do flaps 2 and go to 160. Now it should turn. We should get the turn here shortly. So there comes our 3,000 feet of what we've dialed in before. Now we should take up a heading of 170 here in a moment.
Jetliner 488, turn right, heading 170.
Right heading 170, Jetliner 488. Set a heading of 170 in the FCU and pull to select. For this approach, we're going to follow the ILS. Before doing so, we need to ensure that the correct ILS is being displayed. Please check that the ILS ident Bravo Charlie Alpha is displayed at the bottom left of the PFD, which is the correct ILS for 25 right. If
Now,
not, you have the wrong
thing was,
approach
I had to turn off
selected
the
in the
approach
FMGC,
mode to get
which
to
will
go
be
to
changing right
170.
away.
So we have our correct ILS. We have 25 Romeo. Zulu is our ILS. So that should be all in here.
Jetliner 488, cleared ILS approach, runway 25 right.
Cleared ILS 25 right, Jetliner 488. Now that we're cleared for the approach, arm the approach mode by pushing the approach button on the FCU.
Approach it again.
Now the autopilot is ready to capture and follow the localizer and glide slope.
Ta-da.
Lock mode has engaged, which will capture the localizer.
Lock mode is right. Well, it says it's engaged, but it's off. But in the computer system, it's engaged. Up. There we go.
Glide slope mode captures and descends down the glide slope.
Check that
Now
out.
extend
That is just
flaps 2.
Absolutely amazing. Alright, so flaps 2, change the speed to 160.
And bring us back to 160 knots.
And then we're going to land this bad boy, and we're going to park it, and then we'll be done. We've been going for quite some time. This is another long stream today, although no history lessons or anything. I can't really tell you any history about Barcelona, so I mean, I can try to make something up, but
Looking good. Gear down.
gear down.
Now that the
Now
gear
this-
is down, arm the spoilers. Now set flaps 3. And finally, flaps full. Now push the speed knob for managed speed.
Speed. Oh, that's not.
The speed target is now magenta, indicating we're in managed speed, giving us our target approach speed.
Jetliner 488 cleared to land, runway 25 right, wind 210 at 16.
Cleared to land, runway 25 right, Jetliner 488. Landing checklist. Cabin secured for landing. Auto thrust, speed. Go around altitude 3000 set. ECAM memo, land no blue. Landing checklist complete. Now disengage the autopilot and fly
Here we
manually.
go, folks. We're bringing
Now
this bad
fly us
boy
down
in.
to the runway visually. At 50 feet, look to the far end of the runway. Then smoothly raise the nose a little to reduce our descent rate and move the thrust levers to idle. After touchdown, allow the nose to gently lower onto the centre line. Auto brake low is selected, which will handle the braking until we're nearly at taxi speed. We'll exit to the right.
We got a bit of wind coming in.
300.
Just kind of pushing us off the runway here. This is the part that kind of threw me last time as well, because
200.
we floated way too long.
100.
Look to the end, flare, and thrust idle. Allow the nose to lower smoothly. Passing 70 knots, press the brake pedals to disengage the auto brake. Slow us down to a taxi speed below 30 knots. Take one of the exits to the right.
Oh, we missed that one. We should have gone off right there, but we went on a little too long there. But I gotta practice the landing. But yeah, timing that cut of power, we floated over the runway just a bit too long, it felt like. But otherwise, I think we did pretty darn good for our second go around here. Or, you know, this is the second time, but well, the first time I've showed you guys this. But it took me quite a few tries to get this done. Yeah, we should have vacated the runway way back there.
Well done. When we return, we'll look at how to taxi in after arrival, parking, and shutdown.
All right. So, one more to go. We're going to taxi in, and then we're going to wrap this up. But there we are. We're just going to pull into the parking spot here. Now the thing is, we don't know. So it put us back where we should have turned off at.
Jetliner 488, runway vacated.
Jetliner 488, hold short of Tango.
Holding short Tango, Jetliner 488. Now that we've cleared the runway after landing, taxi forwards but hold short of taxiway Tango.
taxiway Tango is just up here to the right a little bit. If I remember correctly.
Come to a stop here. Whilst we're stationary, let's perform the after landing flow to prepare
Tango
for
right
parking.
here. We got our flaps going back up.
Great, this has us mostly set up for parking, so now we need to taxi to our stand.
Jetliner 488, left on Tango, Foxtrot November, parking stand 104.
Tango, Foxtrot November, stand 104, Jetliner 488. Take this left turn onto taxiway Tango. Stay below about 15 knots as we're making some sharp turns.
I do kind of like that air traffic controller's voice. She's got a nice voice.
We're on taxiway Tango now. Please take the next right onto Foxtrot November. Turn right here.
Now, I
and
kinda
we'll be
had to
on
guess.
Foxtrot November.
Where 104 was, because it doesn't give you any kind of indication, and the gates are not numbered.
Now continue straight ahead. Our stand is on a jet bridge just up ahead.
Come on, bus, hurry up. Get off. Get out of the way.
Turn right onto stand 104 and turn off the taxi light to avoid dazzling the ground staff.
I thought I turned on the taxi. we're going to go into here. That's the best I could figure it from before. Even though we don't have a... There's nothing to indicate that we are actually going to gate 104. I can't find this bush trip. Oh! You have
now
to...
crawl onto the stand, no more than about 5 knots.
You have to buy it. It's a separate thing. You go to the marketplace and look for activities, I think, and it'll say jetliner. That's the one you're looking for. That's a Mellow driving that bus. She's loud. She's loud. I don't mind it. I don't. She's got a nice voice. I think a nice, pleasant voice. This time we're lined up way better than it was when I did it the other day, because I had no idea where we were going. It's probably a little bit loud on... oh, I'm not on a PC. I'm on a Xbox Series S.
Stop here and set the parking brake. Turn on the APU bleed.
APU bleed is right. Nope, that's not it. APU bleed is right.
Turn off the engine 1 master switch.
1 off. Oops. No. We do not want to move forward or anything. We're going to shut down 1 first.
And now the engine 2 master switch.
And then 2.
Now that the engines are running down, turn off the beacon light, which signals to the ground crew that it's safe to approach the aircraft. Finally, turn off the seatbelt sign so that the passengers can stand up and collect their bags.
There we go.
Good job. You've brought us from London Gatwick to Barcelona, all with real techniques and procedures. This flight was very typical and routine for the average sector, but now we'll move on to when things don't go quite so smoothly.
Oh, but we're not going to do through all that. That'll be for another time. We'll do that. So, yeah. But that was it. Doesn't seem so bad, really, does it? You just allow the plane to fly itself. You manage everything else. You dial in directions and altitudes. But yeah, it's not that bad, really, in the end. So, we're going to go back to the main menu. So, Mela, yeah, real quick. If you go to the marketplace, I'll show you where to find it. So if anybody wants to get this, I don't know what the cost is in the UK or whatever. You go to your marketplace and you go to full catalog and then just select under categories, activities, right here. And it'll say jetliner. So I think it's like, in America, it was like $22.99 for that. But it's all done by a legit Airbus pilot. But it also sounds like he's flown Boeings as well. So he talks a little bit about the differences of the two and what does what. You know, like talking about the approach management and stuff like that. It has all that in there. But yeah, this is just specifically for the 320. But, you know, hopefully they do one. Now they do have the new, I want to get this plane. This looks really cool. They do have the new 737 MAX right here. So hopefully they do a training scenario with the 737, kind of like that, so that you know what all the bells and whistles do. The cool thing about this one is it has the different sort of aircraft livery. So you got American Airlines, Delta, Southwest Airlines, Lufthansa, British Airways, I think. It says right here. Yeah, British Airways, an Air Force. You can put the Air Force thing on there. All Nippon Airways, Norwegian, Varig, and KLM. So those are all like legit sort of airline companies that operate that. But anyway, that's going to be it. That was a long stream, but hopefully everybody enjoyed it. Beluga, hopefully you enjoyed it as well. You came in kind of at the end. But yeah, I'm on the Xbox Series S. I don't have the ability to get a PC right now. But yeah, we're playing this on the Xbox. Hopefully I'm going to get a flight stick at some point with the rudder pedals and everything to try to, because it's very difficult with just the controller. So anyway, that's going to be it for today. Hopefully everybody enjoyed that. We'll be back tomorrow. Oh, real quick about tomorrow. So I have an appointment in the morning that I got to be downtown by 11. So I'm going to try to get the update done for Train Sim World 2. We're going to try to get on Peninsula Corridor right away. We may go a little bit early because that's going to take... I'm going to try to do a limited stop service. Cheers, Bex. Thanks for coming in. We're going to try to do a limited stop service from San Jose to San Francisco so we get there very quickly. If we do an all-stop, it's going to take forever. And then we're going to go right into Flight Sim, and we'll do a trip. It's going to be about a half an hour trip, but I need to have the time to be able to get out the door quickly. So anyway, wow, 6 likes. Thanks all for coming in. I greatly appreciate that. Hopefully everybody enjoyed it.